Hello, my name is Sarta Camboj, and today we're gonna have a video about data structures. If you guys are new here, on this channel we talk about computers. Me and my brother and I, we talk about computer science related stuff like data structures, machine learning, game development, all that kind of stuff. So if you're really interested and you like that kind of stuff, make sure to like and subscribe. As for today, we'll be talking about a very specific data structure called a stack. And what a stack basically is it allows for data to be appended on, and it allows for the latest data to be popped off very quickly and efficiently. So for example, if we go to my code editor over here, if I were you guys, I use Visual Studio Code, especially because Visual Studio Code has a lot of features. Like you can easily create files in folders, you can add extensions, it has Git integration, all that kind of stuff. So if you guys can use Visual Studio Code, but if not, that's fine too. Any code editor will really work. And so over here, we have a stack, right? So in this case, our stack is an array. And what a stack allows us to do is if we want to append data or push on data to our stack, we can easily append it on, right? So now, since we want to append the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, our stack now is populated with the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if we want to pop off data, what this allows us to do is we can get the latest data, which in this case is the number 4, and we can also remove it from our stack. So what this allows us to do is we can get the latest information and remove that information from the stack, so we make sure that it's kind of our stack is updated in real time. So when we implement it down here in Python, it'll be a lot easier to understand. But essentially, the main functions that a stack consists of is a push function, which basically allows you to add information to a stack, a pop function, which allows you to retrieve the latest element from a stack and remove it, and isEmpty function, which returns a boolean about whether or not the stack even has any data elements, a print function. And for those of you who don't know, this weird kind of str function, it's the function that Python looks at when it wants to print something. Like whenever you call like print object, it'll look for the str method on this object right here. So essentially we can override the print function. We'll implement a get stack function, which will basically just return the array that we'll have when we implement our stack class, and a get length function which will just return the length of our stack. So if we come down over here, let me just make some space. We start off with a class stack. We need to create a constructor, right? Self. So in this case, we'll create a variable called self.stack, and we'll just initialize it to an empty array. So the first function that we have to do is push. And so the parameter that we'll need a data parameter, right? Because we want to append a piece of data onto our stack. So essentially we need to take this data and somehow put it into this array right here. So the cool thing about arrays in Python is that it comes with an inbuilt function called append, where we can take the piece of data and just append it onto our stack at the very end. So if we do self.stack.append data, this will just take our data and put it at the end of our stack array. The next function is pop, right? We don't need to pass in any data parameter because we're just trying to retrieve some data from the stack, the latest piece of data, and remove it from our stack. So all we need to do is return self.stack.pop. So once again, our stack array, the array object in Python has an automatic kind of pop function built into it that makes it really easy to just remove the last element and return it. Next we need to do isEmpty, right? So once again, we don't need to pass in any parameters because this is basically just a get function. We're trying to get information about whether or not the stack even has any elements. So what we can do is we can return whether self.stack equals an empty array. So if it does equal an empty array, then we know that this will turn out to be true. If it isn't an empty array, then it'll just turn out to be false, right? Because there will be some elements in here in our self.stack. Then we need to let's implement get stack first. So this again is pretty easy, or pass in self, and we just return self.stack. So this will just return the array from our stack class. In def, the function get length, all we do is return the length of our self.stack. And once again, Python has an inbuilt function that allows you to return the length of an object. And so we could just take that function and just use it to kind of expand upon a stack class. And the last function we need to implement is our print function, or this str function, right? So if we do def str, we just need to return a string version of whatever we're trying to print. So when it comes to the stack class, basically what we want to do is we want to return, or we want to print out our self.stack. So what we can do is we can return a string version of our self.stack. And what it'll do is it'll take our self.stack and basically turn it into a string so that we can see all our elements very clearly. And so if we start implementing we kind of test this out a little, right? And then we do stack.push, right? Say 1, and then we do that 3 more times, 2, 3, 4, and then we print stack. Right, if we just clear that out, we do Python stack.py. We see over here that the print function, what this does is it'll add the number 1 to our stack, and then add the number 2, then add the number 3, add the number 4. Then we want to print it. Since we call the print function, Python is going to look for the specific str function. And since you want to override it, we just return the string version of our self.stack, which in this case is just an array with the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. If we pop off, right, say we popped off the last number from the stack, which should be the number 4, right, because it's our last number, and then we return, or we print out stack, and we print out pop num. What we should get back is over here, we should get back an array where it's just 1, 2, and 3, and then the pop num should be 4. So if we do that, we see that over here we have the array 1, 2, and 3, right? Because number 4 was popped off, and since we stored in this pop num, we can see that pop num has a number 4 stored. And if we kind of just look at some of the other functions, right? So if we just comment this out, if we look at some of the other functions like is empty, right? If we print stack.is empty, we should get false, right? Because the stack has some numbers, so we get back false. But if we do print stack is empty over here, we'll get back true because we just initialize the stack and we haven't added any data just yet. So that our stack array within our stack class will be empty, and there won't be any elements inside. If we get the length, right? If we get the length over here, we'll see that it's equal to 0, right? Obviously, because the stack is empty. But if we move that over, here, we should get that our stack has a length of 4, which it does, right? Because it has 4 elements. And the last thing that we can do is just get the stack, right? So if we take that function and we print out our stack after we have appended on our 4 elements, we print that out. Once again, we get our stack. So that's a quick introduction to stack. It's a really powerful data structure, especially because it allows you to add information to an array and then retrieve the latest information right away. There's a lot of different use cases, especially when it comes to like one use case is having like different parentheses. Like if you ever work in a code editor or you code at all in any other languages, then you know that you have like, say you have 2 parentheses, you always need to make sure that your parentheses are balanced out. So every opening parentheses has a closing parentheses. And the way that code editor makes sure that the parentheses are in order and they're closed off properly is by using a stack. So the next couple of videos, we have a couple of examples like that, just so that you guys have a solid understanding of how a stack is used and how it's implemented in like real life situations. So stick around for that. But other than that, I hope this tutorial was really helpful, and until next time.